Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming 2K Pioneer Open. I'm Tandy, joined by Bomat. Say hi, Bomat.
Hi, Bo, Matt.
We have 3 rounds in the books, and we're about to start round number 4. Matt, why don't you tell us what we're going to be watching this round and who we're going to be watching?
So in the first seat, we're going to be seeing one of our guests, Mason Clark, playing Mono Green Devotion. His opponent, Alex Lester, is playing Golgari Citadel.
Whoa,
Yeah,
that's a blast from the past. Bolus of Citadel, a very strong card, especially with things like Prosperous Innkeeper to keep the life going. That'll be
absolutely.
a really interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Uh,
We have 7 rounds of Swiss, Spartan. We're going to be doing all the Swiss rounds today as well as the top 8. 10 total rounds of coverage. This is going to be round number 4. The players are seated. Let's just go ahead and head on out there and we can talk while they're shuffling it up. That way you don't got to see my mean mug. But in the backup featured matches, we got a couple of spicy ones. At the very far end, you'll see Cody DeBoss fighting against our man Corey Baumeister. Cody DeBoss actually made top 8 of our 5K yesterday,
right.
and he is just like a really strong player. Also, host of Bolt the Bird podcast with
Yeah,
world champion Nathan Stewart.
Stoyer.
Excuse me. Very cool.
All right, we are
I've only ever
already
seen it
underway.
spelled.
We are already underway between Mason and Alex. Alex leading off with a blister pod.
All right, but the real story here is Mason Clark on the play, turn 1 elf. That's a big start for Mono Green. And then turn 2, Old Growth Troll, getting the devotion up. And we'll see if Alex can match it. Here's Priest of Forgotten Gods. This one's pretty strong in the matchup. Unkillable basically from the Mono Green side, and will chew up some of those creatures.
Right, and maybe Mason does have some sacrifice fodder. You often don't mind losing an old growth troll if it can come back and enchant a forest, but the mana boost from the Priest of Forgotten Gods, Alex will be more than happy to get that whenever he wants.
Yeah, perhaps with the Blister Pod as well. Could see a really explosive turn here from Alex Lester on the follow-up. But right now, we're on Mason's turn 3, and turn 3 is one of the sweet spots for Mono Green. It's where you start deploying things like Kiora, where you start getting Nykthos online. Not quite doing the combo kill stuff, but sometimes you have those really sick draws.
And instead we see Nykthos for 5 mana and instead just an Oath of Nissa. No Cavalier of Thorns in hand for Mason, so we're going to start digging with Oath of Nissa.
Okay, finds Karn the Great Creator. That's a pretty nice one. We have a Boseiju, and it looks like a Cavalier of Thorns. We're going to take the Karn since we have 4 mana floating. We can go ahead and cast that one if we want. And we're going to go ahead and either tick down and go get something, or we're going to tick up just to protect its loyalty.
Right. Sometimes it can be very useful to just delay that decision. Leave yourself the option on the next 2 turns to get the best possible card from Karn. And it looks like that's what Mason is going to go for here.
Okay, so Karn going to tick up to 6. All right, and either an attack for 4 or passing a turn. Oh, Mason really in the tank. All right. And that's it.
Go ahead.
Now, Alex Lester, if he has creature at number 3 and he finds the Underworld Elf, he can do some really disgusting stuff thanks to that Priest of Forgotten Gods. And Mason probably going to sack the Old Growth Troll and get a little bit of a mana boost.
Right. Looks like we're leading off with Prosperous Innkeeper.
Okay, that gains a life. Makes a treasure. Now every subsequent creature will also gain a life. Here's Llanowar Elves. And then we're going to sacrifice Llanowar Elves and Blister Pod would be my guess, and keeping the Prosperous Innkeeper.
We do see red on top there that Retrofoil Bolus's Citadel, the centerpiece of Alex's deck. The card he's looking to get out as early as possible, and he will just pass on the Priest of Forgotten Gods for this turn.
Couldn't quite cast the Bolus's Citadel, decides to wait a turn. Next turn can cast it, and then just go ballistic.
Right. Even without casting that Llanowar Elves, the most Alex would have been able to make was 5 mana on that previous turn. So coming up just a bit short, and we'll see how much damage Mason can do in the meantime.
Okay, but untapping with Nykthos, Karn, Storm the Festival in hand, a land.
6 Devotion.
Yeah, this is looking pretty good for Mason. If I had to guess, we're gonna go play the Boseiju as a land, play the Pelucranos, activate Nykthos, activate Karn, go get something cool out of the sideboard, and just try to hammer Lester before you can untap and do one of those really powerful Bolus's Citadel turns.
Right, and this can be a tricky decision point for the mono green deck. You have a card in play. You really want the information from your Storm the Festival to plan out the rest of your turn. But if one of the better cards in your Storm the Festival is a Karn, you don't want to have wasted that ability. So a lot of the time, like Mason's doing here, it can be better to just get the best possible card out of your sideboard before doing anything else.
All right, we float 3, 4, 5, 6 mana here, and we have Cityscape Leveler, which we can cast. That's 6. We play land for turn. We have Llanowar Elf still. We have Lair of the Hydra still. And that, every turn, chewing up something from the opponent's side of the battlefield is going to be pretty gross. And here, Cityscape Leveler's cast. We're going to eat Priest of Forgotten Gods. And we're going to give you a Power Stone token, but guess what? Karn the Great Crater says you can't use it. Sorry.
No, you cannot. And this is going to be a really big threat for Mason. Most of the time, these Golgari Citadel decks really don't have room to play pinpoint interaction. Mason has more than enough sack fodder for cards like Priest of the Forgotten Gods. This Cityscape Leveler could absolutely just go the distance this game.
All right, looks like we're going to sack 2 to the Priest. We're going to make Mason sacrifice something. And that's going to allow us to draw a card and make 2 black mana. With the Llanowar Elves, we can make 3 mana, but the treasure token is shut down.
Right.
But the Blister Pod token is not shut down, so I guess we could technically cast Collect a Company if we find it.
But we would need a 3rd black mana source, specifically.
Not for Collect a Company.
Oh, sorry, for Bolsa still.
Yeah, we can't play that one instant speed. I'm talking about right now. This is
right
on,
now.
This
True,
is on
with the
Mason's
double black
turn.
mana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're forcing the action because of the Cityscape Leveler. So Llanowar Elves gets sacrificed. Priest down. Okay.
See what Alex can put together in the face of an 8/8 trample with upside.
Oh yeah, every time it attacks, you get to blow up something else. And here, we're going to get a little frisky with the Old Growth Troll, banging in for 4, Lesser down to 17, and we're going to go back his way. He's got a boatload of mana. That artifact mana is shut down thanks to the Karn, the Great Creator. We'll see if he has enough to cast this Bull Citadel and what he can do with it if he does. Here's Orborg, land number 4. Llanowar is 5. The Eldrazi Scion is 6, even without those artifact mana.
Now, it looks like Alex actually does have one of the few answers to Cityscape Leveler in Beseju Who Endures. So, if he's feeling threatened by that, he could choose to hold that up, but instead is going to probably use all of his non-artifact mana sources to play this as Bolas' Citadel. Treasure token, also can't use that.
Yeah.
There goes the Scion.
You can't use the Power Stone token because of Karn. Okay, I'll sack Treasure. You can't use that one because of Karn either. But here's Bolsa Citadel. And you can't use that one either with the tap ability, but you sure can play stuff off the top. We're going to go down to 16.
Off to the races.
Oh, yeah. Until land is hit, we're playing everything.
Well, we didn't see it come off the top immediately.
Big sigh.
Almost certainly a land.
Sometimes it's like Bolsa Citadel number 2, and that's like a big feels bad. But I have to imagine that if Alex gets untapped, this is going to be pretty gross.
Right.
But, you know, we're going to be able to deal 12 damage here and destroy the Bolsa Citadel with the Cityscape Leveler. So Alex basically going to be in the same position next turn that he was in this turn.
Right.
It looks like actually with the Lair of the Hydra and the Cityscape Leveler, we actually have lethal here.
Very impressive start for Mono Green. You know, the Golgari Citadel deck basically did everything it was trying to do, but Mono Green interacted and closes the game out. Well, we just have Mason making sure all the numbers are right.
Okay, so Nykthos makes 3, 4, 5 mana, plays a land from hand, that's 6 mana, can make a 5/5, Lair of the Hydra, and that's 17 damage as long as you just remove that one blocker with Llanowar Elves. And thanks to the Karn, the treasure token's locked down, so we can't go for Beseju on the Cityscape Leveler, so this should be lethal if he goes for it.
Right, and here goes Nykthos. 5 devotion. 5 floating.
Has another Nykthos.
Okay, we're going over the top.
So up to 7, or no, up to 8. We're going to do this for a 7/7. We're going to attack. We're going to blow up the elf. And we're going to go to game 2. Can't use the Beseju.
Yep.
GG.
Alex just showing off these lands. All right.
So as these players are shuffling up here for game number 2, you know, we talk a little bit about how Mono Green Devotion doesn't like the sideboard very much, but I think you might have some more insight because you play a lot of Mono Green Devotion, Matt. But why don't you tell us about both of these players' sideboards and what you think is going to be coming in? Give us your expert analysis.
Right, so we're going to be focusing on Alex Lester's Golgari Citadel sideboard, starting off with 2 copies of Back to Nature, 3 Fatal Push, 3 Thoughtseize, 2 Necromentia, 3 Scavenging Ooze, and 2 Shaper's Sanctuary. So
Okay.
we have some tools here. Fatal Push and Thoughtseize, both very live against Mono Green. I think we're definitely going to see those come in. Necromantra is an interesting question. Definitely a card, type of card that players will sideboard in, sometimes in inopportune matchups. I think this is a close one.
What do
If
you name?
if Alex, well, in
Karn?
this case, it's almost certainly Karn. Without Karn, there's very little Mason would be able to do to interact with Alex's very powerful game plan. I think it would not be the worst decision in the world to bring in these Necromantras and try to get rid of all those Karns.
Okay. And with turn 1 Llanowar, we can play turn 2 Necromancer quite easily.
Right, the perfect spot.
All right. So on Mason's side of things, out of that Karnwish sideboard, are there any artifacts that you'd like to bring in? And what are you cutting from the main deck if so?
Well, I'm thinking about it. There's Sky Sovereign console flagship. That's definitely an option. You see, Alex is definitely focusing on Priest of Forgotten Gods to get the optimal mana burst to land an early Citadel. And if Mason can just go, turn 1, turn 2, Llanowar Elves, that's a turn 3 Sky Sovereign that could really threaten to kind of play the same role that Cityscape did in that game. Just keep taking out Alex's creatures. Beyond that, I think Mason is going to leave most of the other cards in the sideboard, particularly Haywire Might. That's going to be one you definitely want access to as often as possible off Karn to try to get rid of a Bolas' Citadel.
All right. Well, these players are shuffling up here for game number 2. Mason Clark on your right did win game number 1. Our backup feature matches, though, I want to talk a little bit about them. On the back right, you see old Corey Baumeister, my buddy. He's playing mono green. He took a loss last round, but he's still chugging. And he's playing against Cody DeBoss of the Bolt the Bird podcast. And we're happy to have them here. Corey specifically. We were supposed to do the backpack stream. He's been doing that most tournament weekends whenever there's a big event that he wants to travel to. We had him come out here to Apex to experience the joy that we feel and the love that we feel from the Apex community, and we're glad to have him. Unfortunately, those technical difficulties means that he's just sitting in the feature match chair, but he's comfortable at least, right?
Yeah, he definitely likes it there. Trying to take down some of our players here from the 2-1 position, and we're drawing our opening hands.
All right, so Alex Lester on the left with that Golgari Citadel deck. The Blast from the Past is going to be on the play. His hand looks reasonable, but I don't see a Llanowar Elves here. Mason Clark also looking for a Llanowar Elves, but Blister Pod a reasonable start for Lester, especially if he has that powerful turn 2 Priest of Forgotten Gods like he had last game. Mason going to go ahead and mulligan to 6. Mono Green Devotion, no stranger to mulliganing. You can't keep slow hands. You can't keep bad hands. You have to mulligan because your deck doesn't interact.
I like Mason's shirt.
Oh, yeah? Old Abraham Pumpkin?
Is that his name? That's a good name.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you just came up
right
with
off the top. Dude, I'm so good at this.
All right. Alex, on the play here, definitely has a better chance to outpace Mono Green.
No, that's true. Being on the play, it's elf versus elf deck, right? And,
Exactly.
The reason why Mono Green Devotion is so strong and why you don't see very many other elf decks in the format is because it's the best elf deck. And when you're on the draw against the best elf deck and you're playing a worse elf deck, you're just like 40% to win or less, of the match. Not necessarily the game. Like you're way less percentage to win the game, I think. Probably closer to 20% to win the game or whatever. So it's a big deal, mulliganing. For Mono Green, and it's a skill that many Mono Green players develop, and they become one with the Mono Green strategy, or they don't develop, and they think Mono Green's dumb deck, and no one should play it because it sucks.
Right. I think Mason has some healthy respect for this deck. Leads off with his own Llanowar Elves, facing down just a Blister Pod from Alex Lester.
All right, so turn number 2, we just have a Zulaport Cutthroat, so no real threat for Mason Clark. Can afford to just take some damage while he develops. And if you're Alex Lester, you have to be wondering, like, can I pressure him and force him to make some bad moves, or am I just going to play some creatures that he can ignore?
Yeah, and Mason, 2 games in a row now with turn 1 Elf and turn 2 Old Growth Troll is exactly what he's looking for.
Here's a Catacomb Sifter from Alex Lester, though. That's going to generate a little extra token. That mana can be used later to cast Bolsa Citadel, as well as the Scry effect can allow you to dig for deeper into your deck.
Right, and I do believe Mason has a Nykthos in hand, which means that this Oath of Nissa, he appears to be favoring, will be essentially free.
Yeah, I actually kind of like playing the elf instead, if especially if you're gonna go
Right.
5-drop this turn, because you can go elf, ramp your mana a bit, and then next turn you just have access to more mana. But if you go Nykthos, play a 5-drop, next turn you're just a little shy.
Right. The best possible scenario here for Mason, what he's really looking for, is a Kiora, because if the Oath of Nissa had found a Kiora, Nykthos would make 5 mana. Then going up to 6 post Kiora is really the absolute nut draw for mono green. But this is pretty good too.
Me likey. Cavalier of Thorns on turn 3 off of Nykthos, and we have Forest. We can play the elf. We can do it all. Back Alex Lester's way. And this is going to be a very unreasonable board to manage if you're Lester.
Right.
And you are basically just looking for Golgari Citadel.
Yeah.
You know, you're just looking for old Bolus Citadel to bail you out, because
And
damn, if
we,
you ain't in
we can see him here just sacrificing this Eldrazi Scion with no use for the mana, just to try to scry towards a Citadel.
maybe we'll get to a backup match this round. We haven't been able to get to many
Yeah.
backup matches.
See how
Okay.
quick Mason wants to close it out.
All right. That could do it as early as next turn.
Looks like we have a difficult scry here for Alex.
Okay, taking a peek. Maybe it's collected company, but maybe he doesn't think that'll be enough. Untap draw. What you got? Bolsa Citadel. I see a line of elves. A little too late. Here's a pathway. Taps 3. This looks like another Catacomb Sifter. Yep. And now we're going to get a lot of extra scries. We'll probably finish it off with a line of elves and a prayer. Someone called Madonna.
Why?
Someone called Bon Jovi.
Oh, the prayer. I see.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
I just didn't get it.
No, that's fine. We talked about it in the car. You're not a big Madonna fan like me.
Right. All
I
right.
think it's just an age gap. It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mason Clark draws for turn, has a million billion mana. However many you can count to. I can only count to like 30. I tried going higher the other day. Couldn't do it.
That's usually enough, though.
Right,
You
especially
can get
when you're
through
playing
life
mono green.
yeah. pretty well with just counting to 30. You know, Magic most of the time is just 20.
When I was younger, my dad used to always tell me when you go to school, you gotta learn your 3 R's. You gotta learn your writing, your reading, and your arithmetic.
And you took that to heart.
By God, I can count to 30. You better believe it.
Alex just kind of praying that Mason is looking at a handful of Llanowar Elves.
Yeah, but his hand is like 2 more free 3-drops and Karn the Great Creator. And he's going to attack first, though. He wants to get in some damage.
Yeah.
Because if a block happens, then, he could put the Old Growth Troll on a land and have a little bit extra mana.
Right, and I'm not actually certain this was worthwhile for Mason. If Alex is going to dig out of this, Mason just provided Alex with 2, maybe 4 extra scries and some extra mana
Right.
with this Old Growth Troll attack.
No, I agree. Potential blunder. We'll see if it bites him. But with a million mana and Karn the Great Creator, it's going to be tough for Alex to get back into it. It's going to essentially just take Bolsa Citadel.
Right. Mason trying to figure out... Oh. Wow. Oh, no. So what I think is going on here is we could see a Boseiju Who Endures in Alex's deck, looking to get rid of that Nykthos in combat, but then Mason reminding him that Llanowar Elves has Summoning Sickness.
Sure does. And those Scions, the Eldrazi Scions, while they do produce mana, only produce colorless mana.
Exactly.
So here we go. Mason.
Second main phase, Mason, what's the hammer going to be?
So we can cast a 3-drop before we Nykthos. I think that is ideal because it's free.
Right?
And it generates more equity for next turn. It generates a blocker, which is nice.
And Mason agrees. Polukranos Reborn.
This is chaotic, right? Tapping your lands one way, then tapping your creatures in another land a different way.
You know, I think Mason's a fan of chaos. I don't think he minds, but I definitely do.
I would agree with that. But we're going to go searching. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's say 13 mana. And down to 9 for the Karn. Here's a Godfrey statue, and that's down to 3. And then Godfrey statue has that triggered ability. Every turn we deal your opponent damage, and then all their spells cost 2 more.
Right, so I was talking to Mason about this, actually. Godpharaoh statue kind of fallen out of favor in the mono-green sideboards lately. Mason has cut the Mightstone and the Weakstone for his sideboard in favor of this card, I saw last round he used it to great effect. His opponent had, mulliganed, maybe missed some land drops, and that card shut him down. It's actually even better in this matchup. If Alex is able to enact his game plan and get that Citadel into play, he can pay the life for the spell's mana cost, but he has to pay that 2 mana for God Pharaoh's statue
Yeah.
as well, and he really can't go off with the statue in play.
All right, so I think maybe Alex just had a question about the Godfrey statue. Like you said,
Right.
the interaction with Bolus the Citadel, you have to pay the life. But like Thalia, Garden of Thraben, like Trinisphere, you have to pay the 2 extra.
Exactly. And we saw Mason showing 2, 2, 2.
Yep.
Every time it's going to be 2.
Mm-hmm. And with the Karn the Great Crater on the battlefield too, the activation of Bolus the Citadel to do the big drain for 10
Right.
also off the table. So it's going to be pretty tough for Alex Lesser to get through this Godfrey statue. And maybe Mason Esports Clark was right all along. Imagine that.
We see in Alex's upkeep, sacrificing this Eldrazi Scion to get these scries in, and maybe even able to use that colorless mana on a Beseiju, but there's now a higher priority target in the Godfair statue, if Beseiju is the card in Alex's hand.
All right, so we're going to drain you for 1 with the Zooport Cutthroat. We're going to scry 2 with the double
Catacomb Sifter.
Catacomb Sifter in play. And we're going to be looking for Bolus the Citadel. And we're going to be looking to cast it and use the Beseiju.
Might be counting out life totals to make sure this God Pharaoh statue Citadel, God Pharaoh statue trigger wasn't missed. Here come the scries. That's 1 on the bottom and 1 on top. Collected Company. That's definitely one of the few cards that really does anything here, but I still don't think it's enough for Alex.
Yeah, me neither. But we'll see if Mason can actually cobble together a kill. It's hard to do without Kiora.
But Mason also just has a ton of pressure, larger creatures than anything Alex has in play. Starting off with a Wolf Will Haven. It's free.
It's free. And now we go minus with Karn. We can go get Cityscape Leveler. I don't think he's got anything in the graveyard, so just the biggest thing in there. Oh, Pithy Needle. What are we going to name with Pithy Needle? Inquiring minds need to know, Mason. Because we can also transform the Plukernos as well.
With 13 mana, just spending 1 of it on this Needle. And right, the Plukernos really put this game out of reach. Needle is on the stack.
Okay, we're going to sacrifice the Eldrazi Sign. We're going to make a mana. And we have to spend 6 to play this Collected Company. So it looks like we're just playing Collected Company in response. Which I'm not sure why. I'm very curious what the Pithy Needle's naming to force this.
Alex just kind of instinctively activating his abilities before the Needle resolves, even though Pithing Needle cannot name that Eldrazi Scion.
And we'll get from our spotter the name here. And then we're going to transform Plukernos with the extra mana, and that's going to allow for a large attack.
And a Troll.
Yep. We're going to cast Collected Company here, costing 6 with the mana floating.
And what hope does Alex have out of the top of the deck here? We see some Priests of the Forgotten Gods. See a Prosperous Innkeeper. Not really going to do it. And I believe a Woe Strider.
So the backside of Plukernos, Engine of Ruin, this thing is basically a Wormcoil engine, right? It's got reach. It's got lifelink. Whenever it dies, you get 2 Hydras. Whenever any Hydra dies, you get 2 3/3 Hydras. 1 with lifelink, 1 with Death Touch, and itself. Or sorry, 1 with lifelink and 1 with reach. So it's kind of like a lifelink reach version of Wormcoil.
Right, the white version.
Right, good call.
And we see the Woe Strider and the Prosperous Innkeeper for Alex. Gonna gain a little bit of life back, but that's not really the concern.
Yeah, doing his best Tyvar Coco impression where we're trying to combo kill, but the lifelink on the Plukernos is going to be pretty rough, I think.
Right, Alex not going to be able to chain any spells together thanks to the God Pharaoh statue. Just an Old Growth Troll coming across.
Interesting. Doesn't want to attack the Plukernos. I actually think that 6 life might be a huge deal. There's a chance Lester just draws another Collected Company and just finds another Zulaport Cutthroat and some more fodder and just goes drain you out.
Right, that's definitely threatening. And still an option under this God Pharaoh statue. Sacrificing a goat, digging through the deck.
Yeah, so we essentially get 3 scries now. 2 from the Catacomb Sifter, 1 from the Woe Strider.
Right.
And we're going to dig for whatever we need, basically.
1 bottom. Take a look.
We get so many looks.
2 on the bottom.
We can still sack a bunch more stuff here.
3 cards on the bottom, or maybe one went on, stayed on top. Alex is taking a draw step. After we resolve the God's Fairest statue trigger from the previous turn,
Mm-hmm. Mine's just
just a
Llanowar Elf.
Llanowar
Would have
Elves.
loved to have seen him sacrifice the Prosperous Innkeeper there, just
Right.
to dig 3 deeper. I think this is just the moment where you need to have it. Although Mason is not being aggressive, and I think
Right.
that that's a pretty big mistake on Mason's part, just
I agree.
misidentifying the where we're at in the game. But here, we're probably going to see Karn tick up on the Godfair statue. I wouldn't be surprised to see both trolls, the Plukernos, even the Cavalier, and the 6/6 Godfair statue coming across.
Right. Though, something maybe we missed on the previous turn. Once that company resolved and put a Woe Rider into play, this Pelucranos is not going to be gaining any life.
That's right, because it doesn't have trample; it has reach.
Exactly.
That's my bad. Good call.
So the trolls are coming across. Mason is interested in guaranteeing this damage with the trample, and Alex trying to stave off some pressure by throwing the Catacomb Sifters in front.
Okay, so this is going to be Old Growth Troll dies, Catacomb Sifter dies, a drain on Mason from the Zulaport. The Old Growth Troll is going to be attached to a land.
And
Before damage, we're sacking an elf just to do some extra scry action before that Catacomb Sifter goes to the bin. Bottom.
Alex seems to have a game plan, but it's going to be going to take some pretty specific cards to get out from under the statue.
Alright, looks like we kept a card on top. It has to be Bolus the Citadel or Collected Company. I don't think there's any other card in the deck that matters quite very much. But, I mean, this is a pretty good spot for Alex. I actually think that if we find another Zulaport Cutthroat too, that could be a kill as well.
Right, Mason only down to 10. We'll see if Mason has any other tools in hand, but the Karn did have to +1 this turn. Didn't have any more cards to get out of the sideboard. Or not enough loyalty to get any more cards, rather.
Okay, cool. So we did get a final confirmation on the Pith and Needle. It's naming Boseiju, who endures, and that's going to protect Mason's artifacts from the powerful land from Neon Dynasty. Here's an elf post-combat, and we're going to sacrifice this Wolfwell Haven to make it 2/2, and then we're going to brain you for 1.
And look for the top of the deck to provide some help.
Yeah, we know it's good, though. Kept it on top. That's a Coco. I guess Bolt Citadel is actually uncastable because of the Godfair statue, so
Right.
this is best case scenario. For Alex, your opponent's tapped out. Just cast your spell.
We also see at the top of the screen the treasure token, but it's pretty good that it's out of sight because can't use it under Karn anyway.
Alright, Old Growth Troll being sacrificed during the end step off of the land to make another 4/4 Trampler. And Mason is getting in there with these Old Growth Trolls because they do trample. But now we can activate Karn the Great Creator and maybe go get something to gain some life or to be a big threat.
Alright, just clarifying what that card is, and now after the draw, Mason gonna line up some attacks. Now, when do you expect this company to be cast? Are we gonna wait until the attacks come through, or try to hold it off all the way until the end step to try to deny any Karn value? And it looks like Mason, before even going to attacks, is gonna get a Pestilent Cauldron out of his sideboard with Karn.
Yeah, and that's going to let him get the Karn back, gain some life, and do a bunch of stuff from the graveyard. And this Restorative Burst, attached to an artifact on the front side is just such a neat little combo with Karn the Great Creator that, it kind of breaks like a little bit of the fundamental rules of the game, right?
Exactly.
When something goes to exile, it's supposed to be gone. It's supposed to be no longer in the game.
Right.
Karn specifically reaches into the exile to pull it back.
And that's why Restorative Burst is worded that way, right? A lot of the time, Wizards of the Coast will add these exile clauses onto recursive sorceries like this,
Right.
so that you can't keep looping them. But Karn says, you know what? I'm gonna try to break that loop. Oh, we see here Karn off the battlefield. Alex is gonna take this opportunity to sacrifice a treasure and resolve this collected company.
Oh, we found Zulaport. I think that's going to be game over because we can just sacrifice. Oh my god, that's so much damage with the Zulaports. And we're going to go sack Elf, sack
Look at that
Sifter,
smile on
sack
Alex's
Prosperous
face.
Innkeeper. And that's going to be game number 2 to Alex Lester as long as he churns through with that Woe Strider. 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, dead.
Wow.
Mason defeated.
And really, Mason had some decision points, but the Woe Strider really restricted him there.
Right.
Never going to be able to gain any life off the Pelucanos. Means it's pretty difficult for him to dig out. And Alex found the second collected company at the perfect time.
All right, as these players shuffle up here for game number 3, let's see if they go back to their sideboards and change anything. Mason's got to reset his sideboard from the Karn grabs. Got to make sure that his main deck is 60 cards.
And I'm really interested in Alex Lester's deck that game. We actually didn't see any of those one-mana interactive spells in Fatal Push or Thoughtseize, so it's possible that Alex is very concerned about keeping his deck's, game plan density up and not overboarding. So
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see how much of that interaction we actually see in Game 3.
My experience playing the Golgari Citadel back in the day is very similar to what we're watching here, where you can never really board in both Thoughtseize and
Right.
Fatal Push. Your deck is not designed to play either in the main deck, and if you put in 8 cards, you essentially have to cut 8 creatures, or collected companies, or bowls of citadels. And no
Right.
matter what you decide to trim, you're going to make the density of what your deck's trying to do much thinner, much weaker, and ultimately, I just don't think it's that good of an idea.
Right. These both collected company and the sacrifice cards, like Priest of Forgotten Gods, are both critical mass type of cards, and you really need your deck operating at maximum efficiency.
All right, so as these players decide on their mulligans, I want to take this moment to say thanks, Matt, for coming up, not last minute, but, this is your first commentary gig. I really appreciate you having you here, and I think you've been doing a great job. And I know Pioneer's really in your wheelhouse because you played a ton trying to qualify for the regional championship, which you did
Right.
multiple times, right?
Right. Yeah, I'll be playing my second in Atlanta this
Was
year.
it mono green every time?
The first time, actually, this was a sealed RCQ in
Oh.
Phyrexia All Will Be One.
Nice.
That I made the finals with our friend Christopher McCurry alongside.
Now, I know you ended up playing Rakdos mid-range at the regional championship in Dallas
Right.
earlier this year. How did you like playing the Rakdos mid-range deck? And did you feel like, oh, I gave up on my baby mono green devotion?
I kind of had a crisis of confidence in Mono Green that ultimately turned out to be wrong. Mono Green had a great showing in Dallas.
Weird.
But, I was kind of happy with my preparation. For
Mhm.
the week and a half or so, a month and a half or so leading up to that regional championship, I really immersed myself in the format, and I came out at the end like, I think I know this format well enough to play Rakdos, and I was actually rewarded with a day 2 with a pretty good record.
Heck yeah, nice job. All right, looks like we are about underway here for game number 3, the deciding game between Mason Clark and Alex Lester, this mono green devotion that we all know and loathe, versus Golgari Citadel, the dark horse that we haven't seen in quite some time. It looks like Alex is going to be on a mulligan to 5, and we're off to the races. Mason with that powerful turn 1 elf. Can Lester match? He does. Elf back. Now it's up to Mason. Do you have the powerful 3-drop or some more acceleration? We'll see what he wants to go with.
Definitely have a Nykthos. That is going to be a key part of this game for Mason. And leading off with an Oath of Nissa.
Not the place you necessarily want to be. Usually
Right.
that's like okay, I don't have a ton of great stuff to do, but we can maybe find something better or a land drop. We find an elf. We go elf into elf, and that's
Ooh.
such a burst of mana off the table for Mason Clark, and Alex Lester's got his work cut out for him. Let's see if he can match, but it's going to be difficult.
Right. The Oath of Nissa actually being perfect here. That free devotion, finding exactly what Mason needed in another elf, and we'll see if he has a great follow-up with the Nykthos that he has in hand.
All right, here's Woe Strider from Alex Lester. That's going to produce some bodies and maybe some chump blockers and some scrying, but it's not going to match that powerful start from Mason. The Nykthos here already gaining 1 mana, and there already can be some free stuff going on, but it looks like Mason maybe doesn't have anything to do and just passes
Wow.
turn with access to so much mana.
So Mason actually had high hopes resting on that Oath of Nissa and actually bricked.
Wow. Okay, well, black mana, we're going to make a Priest of Forgotten Gods. That's good news for Alex Lester. We'll see if Mason can come back and do anything next turn. Had so much mana last turn and just whiffed. Now we're counting 4, 5, 6, 7. Land from hands 8. Found Karn the Great Creator.
Wow.
Let's get busy.
Yeah, Mason, maybe even a second Nykthos for an additional burst of mana. just to get him over the edge if he feels a certain artifact is necessary. But Karn, has plenty of options right now. Even just a Pithing Needle could really hamper Alex's mana development.
Yeah, so I counted up. He actually has the ability to go Nykthos. He floats for 4, plays Nykthos, goes down to 2 up to 6, 7, 8, 9 with the elves. That means Karn plus 5. Karn plus 5 is Sky Sovereign, and that can come down and blow up one of these creatures, probably the Priest of Forgotten Gods, and then every single turn for the rest of the game going to be attacking, 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 and just chewing up a creature while smashing for 6.
Right. Good old Skyboat staple in these decks.
See, I'm doing it. If I'm getting up and I'm doing hooping and hollering if he goes and gets Sky Sovereign, man. I love that boat.
Yeah, and here we see the second Nykthos going up to 6.
Down to 2.
The Great Creator.
Oh. Or 1 and getting Needle. There was a miscount here. He should have He should have 2 mana floating. He had 6 and he's down to 2.
Right.
But the die is wrong. But I think that might just like change what he's trying to do. He should have two mana floating, and I think he knows he has 2 mana floating.
There we go.
Weird. All right, so now we're gonna go get the boat.
Right.
Here it comes.
He was committed to this line and knew he was supposed to be able to get there.
Yeah.
Here's the boat.
Hooping and hollering. We're going flying. 3 damage. Gonna target Woe Strider. Can't sacrifice itself. I guess not super worried about Priest because the food on the other side is actually like valuable pieces of cardboard. That thing's got Summoning Sickness, but it's gonna get sacked to the Woe Strider to scry in response.
Wow.
And then the Woe Strider is gonna get blown up by the Sky Sovereign. Interesting play from Lester, but a desperation move for sure. He mulliganed to 5, facing down a Karn the Great Creator, facing down Sky Sovereign. It's a bad spot to be in.
Right, and Mason now has Alex in the Abyss. If the Abyss also dealt you 5 to 6 damage every single turn.
Now, he actually doesn't even need to crew the Sky Sovereign, right? He
Exactly.
can just plus the Karn on it. It becomes a creature, and it still has the ability even though you didn't crew it, right?
So cool.
Yeah.
I love Karn. What a cool
Yeah.
card.
Karn, I would not say is the cool card. Sky Sovereign is the cool
All right,
card.
you know what? That's fair.
Karn is, that's also cool. That's fine. No need to be negative, Nancy. Here's Cavalier of Thorns. We're going to dig in the top 5, looking for a land. We find one.
And this is going to close out the game very quickly. This now frees up Karn to get another card from the sideboard. The Cavalier can crew this turn, start attacking next turn. We saw Alex claw his way out of it last game, but just does not have enough resources this game, I think.
And a third Nykthos is going to generate a ton of mana. Karn's going to go looking. We're going to be casting that Godpharaoh statue. And then once we crew the Sky Sovereign, we're going to kill that elf. And Alex Lesser is going to be locked out of this game. And Godpharaoh statue making its second appearance. And we thought it was dead. And it's back from the grave.
Right.
Godpharaoh statue.
Mason's pet card. I'm pretty sure he's grabbing it just to shame me. But yeah, he's making it look good, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right, and then 1 damage at the end turn. A little bit of rubbing salt in the wound. We're going to go back to Lester's way, but every single spell costs 2 extra. And it's just going to be a little too hard to beat, I think. We're going to pack it in. Alex Lester going to fall to 3 and 1. A handful of goods, but not enough mana to use them. And Godpharaoh statue ensuring that is the case for the rest of the time. Mason Esports Clark, 4-0, needs one more 1 to be able to double draw into top 8 and secure his spots in the elimination rounds and get his fair share of money.